My name is Kandwani Mwase. The next episode is Building Blocks.
People, like, if you have a passion, marry it with belief and just know that it's bigger than you, and I think that that's what happened. I remember Easton encouraged me a lot, and I just prayed for one person to show up on that first event. 38 women came out, and it was life-changing for them, and that time was just enough. The next event grew to 60. I invited my best friend, Julie Black, and she came, and so September 2015, we started to collaborate on the events. And so now in collaboration with Julie Black, we run them together twice a year. And after that, like her brand is pretty remarkable. So I remember the first event sold out, and we've just had to get into bigger venues ever since. So there's her brand, there's this fitness movement, and then there's Empowered in My Skin, which really focuses on non-cognitive work.
Good morning, good day, or good evening, and welcome to 54 Lights. This show is meant to shed light on undertold stories out of Africa. Our vision is to introduce you to some extraordinary people doing incredible things, and to ultimately change the lens through which African and Africans are seen. So, let's start the conversation.
My name is Nkechi Nwafor. My last name is Nwafor, and Nkechi Nwafor is Igbo, and it means God's gift.
You were named by your parents or somebody in...
No, I was named by my parents, and I always say my mom, she was such a brilliant woman to name me God's gift, so I love it.
Okay.
I'm living it. The real nickname for Nkechi is actually KK.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it is. My brother calls me KK. Very few people do.
Okay.
And it's so funny because I see that Kiki, and it's actually, it's actually KK.
Yeah, really?
yeah. And because it's spelled the same way, K-E-K-E.
Right.
But, I think just from a Canadian perspective, people started calling me Ink.
Right.
Yeah, and that,
say, I've called you Ink.
Yeah, Ink, yeah.
So there's been no attempt to correct that?
No, because I would say that it's similar to him. Somebody starts calling you Ink, and you just start to respond to it, and it grows. One thing I do is now people will hear people call me Ink and think that they can call me Ink over Nkechi. Mm-hmm. And I will be, I don't know what it is about my name, but I've always been, there's a lot of Africans that don't either adopt their name earlier on, especially here in Canada, because it's hard for people to pronounce. I have never given people a day off on that.
Really?
No. From the time I can collect it, 6 years old, walked into St. Paul's Elementary School in Beaconsfield, and they were like, "What's your name?" And I said, "It's Nkechi." And they're like, "Oh, is there an easier name we can call you?" I'm like, "No, it's Nkechi. That's what my mom calls me." Yeah. So to this day, I will say, "Yeah, Ink's my nickname, but you got to learn, first know that you can call me Nkechi, and then you can go to Ink."
Right.
Yeah,
so
you got it.
You got to earn it.
You got to earn. I mean, I've already shortened it from Nkechi Nwafor to Nkechi. Come on now.
If I was to ask people that are closest to you, your family, your husband, would they say that that's an appropriate name for Inky Chi?
So I think there's different dimensions, right? So if I think about where I am on now today, yes, 100%. But I know where I've come from, and I know there was a time when I didn't feel like I was God's gift.
Okay.
So I don't know what others would have felt in that time frame.
Yeah.
But one of the prevailing things I've heard throughout my life is that I'm such a happy kid. I'm always so, joyful and always so joyous, but it never really connected to the internal me. So you'd have to ask someone who's like my husband, who's lived with me for 17 years, whether he's always felt that.
Well, Easton, you're here. So we might as well
put me on the spot.
And it's okay. Yes,
put you on the
this is
spot.
Oh
great.
my God.
God's gift. Is that appropriate for Ink?
In every sense.
Yeah.
In every sense, she is. From the time I met her, she's been just nothing but kind, warm, always honest, always just caring about others. So in that sense, I say yeah.
Nkechi Nwafor-Robinson is, by profession, a technology executive. She works at one of Canada's most impressive financial institutions. Her portfolio, however, extends beyond the world of banking. Among other things, she's a fitness guru with numerous accomplishments in bodybuilding. She's also the co-founder of Empowered in My Skin, a movement that's designed to help people live purpose-driven lives and reach their full potential. It's only been around a few years, but the movement's momentum and impact is undeniable. With the formidable Julie Black as her co-founder, the project is forging forward into 2019. I sat down with Inky Chi to talk about her life, work, and of course, the project. Here, in part, is our conversation. What does your family look like?
Mom, dad, and a brother. He's 4 years older than me. My brother and I are first generation Canadian. So my parents actually had never intended to, if we go back to the 60s, my dad had, the intent was for him to come here and get an education. The government actually sent him. It was part of these programs that they had. Yeah, Nigerian government. So he came here and he studied electrical engineering. The idea of telecommunications, he'd help go back to Nigeria and help them build the infrastructure. But that didn't materialize that way. He got a stage at Bell Canada. He ended up liking it. My mom came over, they got married, and then my brother and I were born.
The next voice you'll hear is that of Nkechi Nwafor. That's Nkechi's brother. Being her brother and having lived similar paths uniquely positions him to speak on what makes her tick. Here's our conversation.
So I go by Nkechi Nwafor, and I was born Chukwuemeka Peter Nwafor.
And what does your name mean?
The name Chukwu means God, right? And Emeka means has done well.
What do you associate yourself as, Emeka?
That's a great question. So I associate myself as being a Canadian of African descent. I'm proud of both heritages, right? I think that what my parents accomplished by coming over here and starting a family and everyone doing well, I think it's remarkable, right? And for that reason, I hail my African or Nigerian descent. But I didn't spend a lot of time in Nigeria, right? And with my parents here, I haven't had a lot of opportunities or reasons to go back. And so I also identify very proudly as being Canadian. I think Canada is a nice country. It's a great country.
What does Nigerian culture then mean to you? What is that? What do those roots mean to you?
So what does it mean? That's a great question, and I think there's a couple of obvious things, right? So I tend to gravitate towards the arts, right? So in some cases, it's the music. Right, if you've ever listened to African high life or specifically Nigerian high life, we grew up with that. It's rich. It has a lot of the foundation or elements that you now find in things like jazz. So I think that's part of it. I think part of it's the food. I think part of it is traditions. But what I'm starting to realize later in life is that a big part of it is just the values. Values around things like respect, right? Or, values around decency, right? Values around, in some cases, community and things like that, or family, the importance of family. And I'm not saying these elements aren't in either Canadian or American culture. It's just they have a different flavor in African culture.
How do you feel the two of you are alike?
Well, we have the same parents. The one thing that, I think, I don't know how much she told you about my dad, right? But, he was so hardworking, right? And, he had a vision of, so sort of think of it, he came from Nigeria with nothing, right? Literally. Like, he stayed at the YMCA his first night, right? And, if you take a look at, where he got to, the upbringing he provided, how he provided for the family and things like that, we're all educated and doing well. And I mean, that's remarkable, right? But that was just, a function of just hard work and just dedication, right? Mm-hmm. And then, similarly, my mom, my mom was, dedicated to raising a family. She was dedicated to making sure that we got exposed to everything. Like, we did a bunch of things that a lot of the other, kids of African descent didn't do, right? Like, my mom took me out and showed us how to skate. I ski, right? Stuff like that. And she couldn't do any of that, right? But she was dedicated to making sure that we were fully equipped with everything we needed, both academically, socially, to work here, right? And then she impressed on us. Like, she said, listen, you don't do stuff for the sake of doing stuff. You do things to, you do your best, right? Or to be the best, right? And I think that's where the dedication comes from, right? And I think Nkechi is, I just take a look at what she's done, either as, a bodybuilding pro, or, her new venture, which is this Empowering My Skin stuff, right? And she just, you just see it. She's applying herself, which is great.
Jamaicans and Nigerians. Yeah. You guys are probably the third Jamaican-Nigeria couple that I have actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is there something in the water? Like, what is it with these two nations? Like, do you have similarities when you look at Inky Chi and her background, family, culture that drew you to her as well, or is it just her? Like, I'm trying to understand if there's a thing here.
Well, when I first saw Ink, I didn't thought she was Nigerian.
Okay.
Right? I thought she was Jamaican. So I just saw her and I thought, okay, this is a Jamaican girl, looks confident, strong, and going about her business. But back to your question, I don't know what it is with Nigerian and Jamaican, but Jamaicans are, we don't take no for an answer, right? And we're gonna make sure that if that's what we want, we're gonna go get it by any means, right? And I think Nigerians are the same. If they want something, they're gonna go over the mountain. The difference between Nigeria and Jamaica, I'd say, just because Nigeria is a bigger country. But the attitude,
it's the same.
It's the same. The attitude is very similar, right?
Very cool. Ink, back to you. What do you do for work?
So I'm on the infrastructure side of technology.
The technology space is traditionally very male-dominated. Mm-hmm. You're a black woman, and you're a leader in that space. Mm-hmm. How was that journey?
So when I started, I was 1996. So I was young. I was, and I would say back then there was no, we didn't have inclusion and diversity training. We just didn't. And then all of a sudden, I would say maybe 2011, suddenly all of this came to the forefront. Women in technology, black people in technology, or therefore the lack of black people in technology. And so it came to the forefront. And so I have sat back and thought about my career and saying, well, it was never a problem. It was never something that I felt like I was marginalized. I never felt marginalized. I never felt like I didn't have a voice. I never felt like I was overlooked for roles. Maybe there was subliminally, but nothing ever in my face. And so when people ask me, because a lot of times I say, well, that's not been my struggle. If anything, I've had internal struggle. I say, okay, there's a struggle. And that wasn't my struggle, but I want to do something to eradicate that struggle because it is a real struggle.
It is, yeah.
Women in technology, we could do better, and we are. Black people in technology, we could do phenomenally better, and we will.
It's getting there, yeah.
We will. Well, it's slow, but yeah, I don't even. Yeah, we need to do. I would like to say it's getting there, but I don't see it. So I want to now, because I feel I have a unique position of not feeling like I'm in the struggle, to really be able to contribute to making it better, because obviously I'm indoors that other people are not in, and so what am I doing in those rooms to help make things better?
That's making me think about now Empowered in My Skin. Can you tell me a little bit about Empowered in My Skin? But I'm really absorbed by names. So why did you call it Empowered in My Skin?
Because I wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah. In truth, there was, I got to a place where I realized I was not feeling empowered in the skin I'm in. And
so when did that for you turn? Because it seems like there maybe was a bit of a turn in taking those struggles and, I don't want to say embracing them, but sort of like facing them down, staring them down.
You know, and so Ethan and I have been married for 17 years, right? And the one thing I think we'd like to say to married couples is that there's going to be ups and downs and valleys,
for sure.
right?
Yeah.
And the key is about going through them. And so we were going through a downturn in November 2014, and my career also kind of hit one as well. And the collision course was hard. It was really, really hard. And so I was really struggling at that time. And I have a friend that introduced me to a book called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And that book changed my life. And so I just started on that journey to eradicate, anything that, quote unquote, is labeled as hate in my life. And it was a girlfriend of mine. We were coming back from a bodybuilding competition, and I mentioned that, I want to launch this movement called Empowered in My Skin. And she held me accountable to doing it. And so 1 year later, November 2015, my first event, and he actually wasn't a caterer then, but he catered for it. Yeah. So it's amazing how our lives kind of collided and grew, and we've grown from there.
How's it been, that journey to build that brand? Because it is now a thing.
To anything I say to people, like, if you have a passion, marry it with belief and just know that it's bigger than you, and I think that that's what happened. I remember Easton encouraged me a lot, and I just prayed for one person to show up on that first event. 38 women came out, and it was life-changing for them, and that time was just enough. The next event grew to 60. I invited my best friend, Julie Black, and she came, and even Easton encouraged me. He says, you should partner with Julie. Like, she's, you have this powerhouse of a friend who also has a great platform, and she'd seen that as well. So we partnered after that. And so September 2015, we started to collaborate on the events. And so now in collaboration with Julie Black, we run them together twice a year.
You are two really big personalities. I don't know Julie, but I know of Julie. She's a big personality. You're a big personality.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know. We've been friends for over 20. We're going on 22 years. We met in 1996 at the gym.
Okay.
Easton and I are going on 18 years together. Yeah. We met at the gym. So I think there's something to be said about the foundation of a friendship, of a relationship. And I think when you meet on a common ground, doing something that you're so passionate about, that's healthy and vibrant, I believe relationships will grow and thrive. Like, like some of the two, my closest relationships, we're all met them at the gym, So there's got to be something there. And then I think there's the spiritual aspect of it, that then carries the relationship and creates balance from there. So we don't compete, we complement. So don't compete, complement each other, because no one person carries 100% perfection.
There's a lot of discipline in what you do. You mentioned the gym a few times. I know you work out a lot. There's bodybuilding. Technology in terms of your work, that requires discipline. Building a brand, Empowered in My Skin. Where does that all come from?
I would say my parents. Yeah, my mom's very disciplined. My dad as well.
I guess I have a question about your time, both in Ottawa, I guess, and in Montreal with the kids. Both of them seem to have ended up landing professions in like the technology space.
I'm an engineer. I love engineering subjects, and I try to impart that to the children. Mm-hmm. So, and I think today they can tell you that they well, from the positions they hold in their various jobs, I will testify that they had good education.
As you may have guessed, that was Peter Nwafor, father to Inky Chi and Emeka. Like many African fathers, his footprint, influence, and poise are impressive. But let's get back to Inky Chi.
And so ingrained in me, I don't know how to be any different. And then I think on top of that, I've also studied very successful people in this world. And you start to realize that all of them are a success because of the routines that they've built in their life. And so I'm very much a creature of habit, and I flourish in this space. And when my days are not organized, I find that I kind of just wander around the world.
Is there something that in your youth that you can point to that say, that day, like, that's the day ink became ink? Do you know what I mean?
I don't think ink became ink until, ink didn't really become this ink that you see now until 42.
I think that discipline is from birth.
Yeah.
Because her mom handed down to her like that, right?
Yeah. So
she had she know nothing else.
yeah. So I would say to Ethan's point, I don't know in my youth. I don't have a time where it's like, okay, I'm just going to pick up my socks and start to beat this. I don't have that. Yeah. But I could say when I turned 42, I recognized the value of discipline. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think I was just fortunate to have parents that instilled it in myself and my brother. Mm-hmm. But at 42 is when you start to live intentionally, a little bit differently. So you take different stock, you become more present in your life. And so in that, I saw the benefit, the value of discipline. So now I can speak about it. But I couldn't, up until then, somebody said I was disciplined. I'm like, but I don't. Sure. I just, that's what I do. Yeah.
That's just me. Like work stuff, your star is rising, and I don't know much about the technology, but I know that to get to that space at a place like TD, it's not a small place. That's an accomplishment.
Thank you.
That's a life in and of its own. Mm-hmm. You've got Empowered in My Skin. That's a life in and of its own. You've got the gym. Mm-hmm. That's a life on its own. Mm-hmm. How do you corral all those things? But maybe more importantly is what's next?
What is next? What isn't, man? Eyes forward, right? So I believe that I need to step up my game more. I know that sounds...
Sorry.
No, but
create more hours in the day.
But I need to use my hours better. So sorry. How I say that is that I listen to a lot of, like I said, successful people. I listen, I'm a big podcaster, so I listen to Oprah or Louis Hose or, Tim Billiard, The Impact Theory. And they're always bringing in people that are doing phenomenal things in this world, And as a result, I recognize there is so much more opportunity and available, not just for me, but for everyone. I think about Jerk Up Central, there's just so much. He's only in Scarborough. So when you think about even Empowered in My Skin, just the main fact that it's not necessarily a building, it is a movement, as she said. The world hasn't seen it yet. I want to be more radical about, really getting STEM into the Black communities and not, in the youth, right? Because just in October, I attended this amazing event, Move the Dial. And one of the things I loved is they had a component where they brought the youth and the work that they're doing. And these 14 to 15, between the ages of 14 and 17, these girls were on stage. if I looked at the demographic and if I looked at the representation, it's not different than what we see today, right? So we see Asians, we see Indians, and in the visible minorities, Asians, Indians, Mexicans, and blacks are always the lowest represented. And if I don't do something today, then 5 years as we're patting ourselves on the back that more youth are into STEM, the representation is not going to look any different than today. And to me, that's not moving the dial, So I believe moving the dial is moving it across all so that it's not a thin anymore, that you just see a sea of black, Asian, Hispanic, Indian, and it's just, that's what you see, this is, So I want to be more radical about it. And I want to be more radical about helping other humans be more empowered in their skin. So I think that if anything, you'll see me being more courageous and stepping into my courage more to really to be bold and speak about the things that are important to me and I'm passionate about.
If you had one chance to meet with somebody, living or dead, who would it be? Like, who's your hero?
I think I'd love to have met with Michael Jackson.
Really?
Yeah.
What would you ask Michael Jackson?
What was missing? He defied logic, yet something was missing. What was that?
This is anecdotal, but there is in Power to My Skin, there is a black story in there, but there's a female story in there. Is it both, or like, what do you want that to be?
I thank you for asking me that question. I have used our flyers for diversity training. So Julie and I, like Oprah, are on our flyer. And I have asked people, when you look at our flyer, what do you see? And they say they see an event for black women, okay? Then I will show them another women empowerment seminar, and it has white women on it. And what do you see? I see, and this is a true story. And the person said, well, I see an event for women. So I said to them, well, I'm going to now show you a picture of our event. Okay. And so I showed them a picture, and I'd gone to both. Well, obviously I've been at ours and I've been to the other events. So I showed them a picture of our event, and multicultural, as you can imagine, Asian, Indian. So it's a human event for human beings, right? And so to me, and what I want it to be, I want people to look at Empowered My Skin and see beyond what their eyes can see. And so our event is not for women only. Men have come, but a lot of times as human beings, we can't see beyond what our eyes can see.
Beyond the box, yeah.
And so I feel the more empowered you are in your own skin, the bigger your vision.
So there you have it. The conversation continues. I'd like to thank all my guests for their participation. As always, find us wherever you like to do your listening. iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and even YouTube. Music for this episode was composed, enjoyed, and used with permission by Anjo. Until we meet again, thanks for listening. If you're going away on vacation, 2 weeks, where are you going?
Oh my gosh. We have to hit the Canary Islands, man.
Canary Islands? I was going to say.
Yeah, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know that.
Going with you?
Oh, he's going to come with me. Easton's coming with me.
Are you the type that naturally will pick up the pen or the sword? Will you go and write your Congress man or woman? Or will you go in the streets and protest?
Both. I think both are important.
Both are, okay. Easton, randomly for you, what would you do?
Streets for sure.
Streets for sure. Inky Chi, choose one. Canada, Nigeria, Jamaica.
Oh, Lord.
Montreal, Toronto, or Ottawa?
Ooh. Oh, man. I'd have to say Toronto.
Serena or...
Oh, come on. Don't even.
I know the answer to this question already, or I think I know it. Early riser or midnight owl?
Early riser.
The gym or the stage?
The gym.
Yeah? I don't think you do any of these. Wine, scotch, or beer?
Water.
In the movie about your life, who plays the lead role? Who is Inky Chi?
Olivia Pope. Oh, what's her name? Kerry Washington. Yes, ma'am.
What's the name of the movie?
A Life Well Lived.